drop.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, what's going on? Happy Sunday, everybody. Sorry,
Thank
I
you.
don't know if you guys could. I forgot to mute my computer. My kids or my family's going to a barbecue, and my daughter came down here looking for some socks. So anyway, welcome to this. We're gonna have this is Sunday episode of Recap with Mac. We were unavailable yesterday. So Mac, anything new going on?
Well, what isn't? This has been a crazy time. We have the two pending scheduling recommendations, and on top of that, a request for information from the Assistant Secretary for Health at the Department of Health and Human Services, which has been widely confused, deliberately manipulated by some in order to try to spike the number of comments into what the HHS Assistant Secretary asked for, and specifically, if anyone wants to go and read it, they can see that there is no question that this is a request for scientific information that someone may possess in order to help them understand what the proper levels of 7-OH would be on the scheduling recommendation that applies to 7-OH in its concentrated form and chemically manipulated form. That's all it is. And what the 7-OH people have done is that they've hijacked that request for information, and they got caught in a couple of ways. First off, they come out and say, "Oh, anybody can comment, and we want you to comment because this will help people understand better on the government side what your experience is." And then they absurdly say that the whole group of comments will constitute some sort of scientific evidence based on the amount that you are consuming in a milligram form. That is utter and complete nonsense. The people that are expressing it know that it's not true, but they're using it in order to gin up two things. One is to confuse everyone. Obviously, they'll come out after they've submitted their comments and they'll say, "Oh, we had 40,000 comments of people, and how can the government ignore that?" The second thing that they're asking people to do is to write to their congressman and say, "Oh, we're under the authority and scope of this new Assistant Secretary for Health request for information. We're telling you not to allow the DEA to schedule kratom." And they try to piggyback the experience that we had in 2016. Now, that's really important because the differences are stark. In the first place, when we initiated the campaign in 2016, a couple of important things to remember. We never asked anyone to duplicate their comments. In fact, we told them not to. Now, Seven Hope Alliance knows, absolutely confirms that they knew based on what Michelle Ross has been saying on I think it's LinkedIn, where she admits that they were watching it. They knew it was happening, but wasn't them. Well, I'm sorry. If you start a fire, you're responsible for the wildfire that's spread. And the proper thing to do is for an organization to say, "We do not want people faking comments. We don't want you to adopt a fake name or a pseudonym. We don't want you doing multiple comments in order to somehow bastardize the result. But that's what's happening. You look at the intent of what these people are doing. So that's the first thing, is that we never did that. But more importantly, the comments that we had available were not solicited by anyone. What we did is said to the DEA, after they opened the comment period, we got 23,232 comments. That was an officially sanctioned DEA event. But in that 30-day period, which is the comparable period we're in now, we just had people that were calling their congressman, emailing their congressman. There were 6,000 phone calls made to the DEA, which the DAPR office said they'd never seen anything like it. And they, but that was, we weren't asking people to call the DEA. We were asking people to call their congressman or email their congressman. And it was I would say, an organic effort to make the phone calls to the DEA. Understood? But the important difference is that we were talking about a body of evidence of decades, and in some cases, centuries of safe use of natural kratom products. That's what we were talking about. We weren't talking about a newly introduced, chemically manipulated opioid that is akin to a drug dealer sitting down on the street. And I know that there are some in the 7-OH community that say, oh, we can't be accountable for what the 7-OH manufacturers did when they introduced the product on the market. We're just concerned about the consumer that got addicted, that got trapped in that addiction, and now they're hooked on it, and we can't, force them to go off of it. That's their message. I mean, it's astounding to me. It is astounding because that whole message is, it's okay to let some drug dealer sitting on the corner to sell fentanyl or meth to someone because the person wants it, because the person may need it, right? That's their message. And they don't care about the fact that that addicted person may be harmed as a result of it. That person may end up in a treatment center. That person may end up dead. They don't care.
Not may. It's happening.
Well, it's happening between any individual who consumes a 7-OH product, and look at the spectrum of products that are out there. You look at there's some that say, oh, it's 7.5 milligrams is the safe level. And they try to say it's safe because it's different than 300 milligrams. And 300 milligrams is more unsafe. Okay, so that doesn't make 7.5 milligrams safe. That just says that it's less safe at 300 milligrams. It doesn't justify the presence on the marketplace. So it's absurd what they're saying. And every single advocate that's pleading now, saying, oh, prohibition doesn't work. I mean, you hear this argument. I've been good friends of mine and respected people. Soren Shade's an example. He makes the point, show me when prohibition has worked. And I responded to him, by the way. I said, well, at one level, prohibition works great. We don't allow lead in water anymore. Lead in gasoline anymore because of the harmful effects. So we eliminated it. You don't see people down on the corner selling leaded gas. You don't, because it's, there's no demand for it. We did the same thing with asbestos. So prohibitions in certain categories can work, and we've done them and seen how the government model works. But it is true that prohibition on a drug has uneven results. I get it. And if you look at the issue that we're talking about, you take an opioid, a full-blown opioid that's sitting on the market today, who got on the market illegally, in the sense that the 7-OH manufacturers openly admit they had no basis for safety under conditions of use, as is required by the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. So they don't have to follow that. And literally, Michelle Ross says, I'm not accountable for that because I wasn't around then. That's her excuse. So you come upon some crisis and you opine that it's okay to use 7-OH, and you say, well, don't blame me for what the companies did to introduce these illegal products onto the marketplace today. So I feel badly for any person who got involved in the consumption of 7-OH. There's some personal accountability for that, by the way. You can't absolve everyone completely. They knew that many of them knew exactly what they were getting into. The ones that I have the greatest empathy for are the ones who thought they were buying a natural leaf kratom product because that's what the package said. That's the kind of perception. And if you heard one time the Seven Hope Alliance say that, or Heart say that, of course not, because all of their people are representing the companies that introduce these products on the marketplace. And Michelle Ross can say whatever she wants, and she can hide in any corner she chooses. She can't avoid the responsibility of what her sponsors did. The
They
good
almost like demonize. They almost. I've heard them go off on tangents to where the people that are complaining about being addicted or having issues with any of their products, it's like it's completely their fault. They should have known. Almost just hateful. It's
It
like,
is.
okay, at some point, let's go ahead and admit y'all came in the marketplace wrong and you marketed it wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah.
marketed as a more potent form of kratom, and that's how
Yeah.
a lot of people in our kratom community got duped into it.
Exactly right. And when they market it, telling people this is better, stronger, it will knock you on your ass, it will get you conflicted in terms of being an addict. I do not understand how anyone can sit there and justify what's happened other than it's all about the almighty dollar. Look at the presentations that are sponsored by and presented by Seven Hope Alliance and the Heart Group. You don't see, you see Matt Schwerman, who is on the board of Heart, and he was at a conference last year speaking for Seven Hope Alliance. So they try to say they're separate. They're not. But do you have them, the major companies that are involved in the market, in the manufacturing and distribution of these products? Name a time when you've seen that at an AKA meeting. It doesn't happen.
And his products are the ones that are alluding to drug names.
Yeah, this is a tricky marketing thing because obviously they want to use packaging, and I hear Amanda Rayner over on the 708 Gals podcast where she talks about, oh, it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible for anyone to be marketing products that are attractive to children. She says that with a straight face. And go to Wonderland and look at their product alignment, look at the packaging, look at the marketing schemes. It's all attracting teenagers. I mean, this makes no sense to me. And yet with a straight face, and this is what they do. Everybody says, how can you blame us? This is just about misbehavior in the marketplace. It is not. When you call it kratom, which it's not, when you put in a chemically manipulated opioid, make the majority of the product 7-hydroxymetrogeny or worse, pseudodoxil or the MGM 14 and 15 and 16, if you make it that, then it's not the consumer's fault, right? We at the AKA solved this problem back in 2019 at two levels. We actually started developing our Kratom Consumer Protection Acts in 2018 in preparation for the 2019 legislative sessions. So when we went to the legislators, we said the first thing you should do is make sure that the product formulations are correct. And we put in a limitation on extracts. You can only produce, manufacture, market, and sell an extract that has been produced using FDA-approved food-grade solvents. That's what we said. And secondly, you had a limit of no greater than 2% of the overall fraction of the product being 7-OH. So now you have 98% or less of 7-OH, I'm sorry, 2% or less 7-OH, and 98% being metrogeny. Flip it to 7-OH products, it's the opposite. The vast majority of that product is 7-OH or pseudodoxil, depending on who you do it. So there's that. That's an important factor along the way. So we put these regulations in effect and we promoted them, we supported them, we argued for them. Nobody was going to argue with us that we're responsible for putting bad products on the market, because we simply cannot tolerate that. And when we found companies that were making products that were making illegal therapeutic claims, we reported over 100 of them to the FDA for action. We didn't sit back and say, don't blame us, don't do that. I mean, this is nonsense. And yet they want to say with a straight face that somehow they're justified because, AKA did it the same as we're doing it now. We did not. That's a lie. They're being misled by the leadership of Seven Hope Alliance and the Heart Group, and it's stunning. And then you see, and this is an interesting personal attack. They go after me for something that happened 40 years ago when I pled guilty to a conflict of interest non-intent statute. I don't like it. I don't like the circumstances. And I could tell you the story of that in the even item why it was really the wrong thing. But the Shell Ross gets on and says, what's it up? Says he's a convicted felon. So, starts citing it. She is on podcasts and webinars with Jeff Smith.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't say to him, "Oh, aren't you a convicted felon?" Because he is. He violated
Mm-hmm.
some election laws in Missouri. He went to jail. She doesn't say that. It's as long as you agree with her, as long as you're on the same team, that's a minor thing. And yet she
Mhm.
wants to make personal attacks to do what? To divert attention from the weakness in the argument that they currently have, which is they cannot justify the fact that they placed into the marketplace extremely dangerous products, extremely dangerous. So
Yeah.
back to the issue of when I said I have empathy for people that are in the current circumstance, however they got there, from believing what the manufacturers did, I personally, and the AK as a policy, does not support that individual citizens should be criminalized. So we are in our federal KCPA and in the associated legislation with the specific ban on 7OH, which we think there needs to be legislative action to more correctly handle this. We are going to advocate for a provision that exempts individual uh, citizens for possession. We are going to support that the manufacturers and the distributors and the retailers who engage in commerce to put these products in the hands of consumers should be subject to the provisions of the Controlled Substances Act. That's the bottom line. And they can argue all they want. They can throw up their hands and they can put up these false arguments that they like to make. And they're just that. They're false arguments. They don't make any sense. They're not grounded in good public policy. But and this is the saddest part, in the same way that they duped the average consumer when they put their products on the market and called it kratom and told them this is just another form of kratom. It's a better form of kratom. It will make you feel better. It will give you a stronger effect. When they did all of that, they duped those consumers into supporting them. And now, today, they're doing exactly the same thing when they're telling consumers, you need to write to the Assistant Secretary for Health. You need to write to your congressman because we want to protect 7OH because it's a safe product. It is not. They
Mm-mm.
couldn't justify the safety of their product prior to market entry, which, by the way, if they had done the safety studies, which they claim that it is safe, rather than using human guinea pigs, which you're not allowed to do, they could have gone that route. But you know why they didn't? I was going to bring a buck. It's because of the money.
Yeah.
It is, yeah, exactly. And it's still
all about the almighty dollar. That's why they did it. They couldn't stand to wait. They had to get on the marketplace because guess what? They had this great product that would, I don't know, that quoting the representatives at the champ show, it will knock you on your ass. What in the world are we doing? And that's what they did. And now we sit back and we hear apologists like the Seven Hope podcast girls. They apologize for it. And I saw the video that Madeline Sklar put out. In my opinion, I cannot even see a better example of hypocrisy than her. She has been for a year saying, I'm not advocating for 7OH. I don't do that. I just don't want people to feel, to be caught in a prohibition. That has been her excuse for a long time. Now, does anyone think in their right mind anywhere in the universe that going on an advocacy podcast for 7OH to go and tell the Congress not to ban 7OH and argue for all that, tell me that isn't exactly what we have known for the last year?
Mhm.
And interestingly, 2 weeks ago, I was on their podcast. They refused to let me come on. They will let anybody else come on. They will have guests from the 7OH industry. They will have Wednesday Forest Bear, and I want to talk about her for a second before I stop. They have all of these people that are out there on their podcast. They won't let me. So I was on the chat board, and when people were commenting, I said, "Well, here's the information that responds to the argument." I was respectful, civil. I didn't say anything out of line. And do you know what Madeline did? She blocked me. She said, "You can no longer comment." I mean, what? Now, and yet they're at the same time, you have the rest of them all saying, we want everyone to be heard. We want our voices here. I mean, this is the epitome of hypocrisy that the 7OH gals are involved in, and they want everyone to believe oh, we're not for 7-OH. There's some of us that take 7-OH. They have a person who works for a 7-OH company who repeatedly says that they're not selling the kind of products that she stores, and they are. She has two users of 7-OH products who are testifying for it, and then she has one or two. And then you have Robin Graham. I mean, when you talk about someone who doesn't know what in the hell she's doing, she gets up there and says, "Well, we're for kratom, natural kratom. We're not for 7-OH." Does she not realize that 7-OH has been the catalyst for every ban that's been in the states in the last 2 years? What are we talking about here?
Not just states.
What
Not
is
just
she?
the states.
She right, and the federal government too. She wants her, and the local governments. She
Yeah.
wants her mug on the 7-OH Gals podcast more than she wants the truth. And
Yeah.
so it's pretty bizarre. So I wanted to talk about Wednesday Forest Bear. I mean, I try to respect everybody's position and what they believe, but Wednesday put up on the Reddit post that she is a witch. Which, okay, she's a witch. She is brewing up this concoction, and she wants everyone to light a certain candle while they're making comments. Now, I don't know whether these are duplicative comments or whether they're going to be transmitted somehow through the witchcraft. I have no idea. But if there's anything that brings more disrespect to the kratom community, it is that kind of outlier. And the only reason I bring it up is that Wednesday Forest Fair is one of the official paid advocates for Seven Hope Alliance. So they can't walk away from it. They can't say that this kind of nonsense we don't agree with it. They're embracing it, and they're encouraging all these advocates to get ginned up. So now we got witches flying around on their brooms, lighting their candles up, saying, "Let's go advocate by sending in false comments." That's just wrong. And so we've got a battle on our hands, right? Now, as I said earlier, the HHS has a very sophisticated AI system that weeds out the comments. They're not going to be as susceptible to the nonsense, but members up on the Hill will be because of these pleas that are done. So I think our next battle is going to be with the Congress, and that's fine. There will be a period of time at the end of the 30-day period. The DEA will publish a final rule in the Federal Register. If they determine they want to delay the 7-OH rule, for example, to see if there's anything material to the actual rule, then they might delay it for a week or so to evaluate those. I don't think they will, but they might. So that's a possibility. But we're going to see the Sudandoxil and the MGM 15 and 16. They'll be gone because there's nothing anyone in this planet can produce that is going to support the safety profile of those opioids. So that's done. And I think I truly believe 7-OH is probably 80% there that they're going to publish within that 30-day period. They might delay it a couple of weeks, but that would be the end of it. So it's one of those things where we have to confront the reality that we have some anti-kratom people. On the other side of the spectrum of people that we're fighting are people like Dean Francis. Dean Francis created this group called End Kratom Addiction. He's no more interested in seeing the truth than Madeline Sklar is. He bans everything. He shuts me down on LinkedIn because not that I said anything offensive. He's the one firing off the offensive remarks and the threats and nonsense. He disagrees with me and didn't want anyone to read what I was saying in response to what he was saying. For example, I pointed out to him that in December of 2025, he put out a press release that said, "My son Cameron was on nothing else but natural leaf kratom." And then 3 months later, he's calling 911 and he's saying, "My son is here having drunk a fifth of whiskey. He has other bottles that he's obviously drunk. He's saying, I'm not drinking alcohol." He's got it on his breath. He's got it in his hand. And he's also on, and get this, 7-OH. So in December, he's saying it's all natural leaf. And then if you look at the evolution of Cameron Francis's own story, and he said it to me on LinkedIn a number of times, it was only natural leaf.
You know what's wild? When that phone call, when did he meet with the governor of Virginia?
The 2.5 or 3 weeks after the 911 call. I will bet money that wasn't discussed with the governor. Oh, by the way, crisis with 7OH. Nor was it discussed with Representative Cole, who's the biggest the biggest victim in all of this,
Yeah.
because he was asked by Dean Francis to carry this legislation. But Dean Francis, he hides in a hole, and now you can't reach him. Now I have people that are sending me information, which I deeply appreciate, of things he's saying, and now he keeps escalating the battle. His latest battle is against John Shinholzer. John Shinholzer is a former founder of the McShin Foundation, which is the largest nonprofit addiction recovery center in Virginia. And he has had national stature with various addiction recovery groups prior to his retirement. He is an addict recovering. He's a Marine. And for him to be attacked by Dean Francis for one single reason, Dean Francis doesn't like his message. Dean Francis wants to say, "Oh, he's been invited to speak on behalf of the AKA, and the AKA is just an industry trade group," which we're not. But that's another nonsensical argument that Dean likes to throw out there, which makes all of his arguments suspect, because he just slings nonsense or BS. He does it consistently. So Dean Francis is a person who has a very interesting relationship with integrity, because he doesn't seem to think it matters, that he can say or do anything he wants. And to say that the AKA is a industry trade group, well, who is the End Kratom Addiction Group? Who funds that? Is it the trial lawyers? Is it the KDA? He's now gotten into discussions with, hear this, in discussions with Melissa Ross. What?
Melissa Ross? Michelle Ross?
I'm sorry, Michelle. Thank you, Michelle Ross.
Are you serious?
Yes, they're having discussions on LinkedIn and going back and forth. Now,
that's like Claudia having discussions with Kolodny.
It's kind of like that, isn't it? And this is what's happening. I mean, I sit there and look at this and say, what universe are these people playing in? Because it's not ours. It's not reality. It's, and you would think that Michelle Ross would understand that you have Dean Francis, who wants to get rid of all kratom, everything, and she's climbing into discussions with him and saying, "Oh, well, I don't know what they think. Are they going to work together? I don't know."
What is 7OH doing to their brains?
I don't know. So
we don't have the science to know yet, Misty.
Yeah, exactly. What in the world? Oh my God, I'm at a loss for words on that. Oh my God. Yeah, Michelle wants kratom banned since 7OH. A lot of 7OHers say that, or excuse me, 7-hopers. I heard that people are going to steal my tagline on that, but I actually stole it from somebody else on an email thread. So 7-hopers.
This is a temper tantrum, because what happened was that the decision that was made by the DEA, after an evaluation of the factors that are required for review by the Controlled Substances Act, they didn't make it up out of thin air. They looked at the evidence and data that supports this decision. And so the DEA made a considered, well-founded decision about 7OH being dangerous and therefore schedulable under the three specific criteria under the emergency scheduling or the temporary scheduling power. They did it. Now, there's 2 years that a review takes place where the DEA has to produce the 8-factor analysis for permanent scheduling. There's another year they could add on if they chose, if the Attorney General authorized it. But they have 2 years, and they will produce the permanent scheduling. That's what the 7OH people should focus on.
Can I ask you this? What is your answer to when they, we hear constantly the AKs shot themselves in the foot. So what is your answer to, I'm guessing they think that it would have never came up on the radar and the DEA would have never done anything, and it's all the AKA's fault. It's all the AK's fault bringing attention to it. What do you say to that?
So
7OH shot itself in the foot.
Well, here's the chronology of events that took place. When we became aware of the interest by the Heart Group in trying to resolve the 7OH issue, because they knew that we've been fighting since 2018 to restrict the product formulation in our state laws. So they came to us and they said 2 things. First, we absolutely have the evidence and safety data that supports market entry and we can document that. That turned out to be a flat out lie, based on what their chief scientist, the scientist consultant they had, who said, when asked a couple of months later after we signed this agreement, no such scientific evidence existed. So that was the first thing. Second thing they said to me was, we will not allow these products to be sold as kratom. They will stand on their own. And I said, okay, if you will allow, you'll get rid of the kratom moniker to it in all of your marketing material, don't call it kratom because it's not, then you can then exist in whatever world is available to you under the Shea Act and the Controlled Substances Act. You can deal with that on your own, but do not call it kratom, right? Don't label it, don't market it, no way. And they said, fine, we'll do that. Now, that was another misrepresentation, because their excuse afterwards, well, we can't control everybody in the marketplace. Okay, good. So you report everyone to the FDA. It's not. And then you force compliance. I can tell you that after we started reporting kratom companies for illegal marketing claims, they cleaned up their act. And now, if we looked in the marketplace today, we have very, very, very few companies that are violating the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. So they could have taken action. But see, that's not in them, because they wanted their products to be out there. They wanted them to say, oh, this will help you resolve your opioid crisis issue. This will treat pain. It will treat chronic pain. It will treat all kinds of things. And they list them. I mean, this is craziness. And yet that's where they wanted to be.
They didn't report. Yeah, they didn't report to the FDA because that would have put the bullseye back on them.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, so that answers like your question, Mike, about why didn't they clean up the industry like that?
True.
You know?
Yeah.
That's putting themselves on the radar.
Yeah, I literally was invited to a meeting with about 60 7OH vendors. And the purpose of the meeting was to discuss why the AK was not going to continue with the agreement with the Hart Group. And they had their talking points prepared before I got to the meeting, but they all expressed it it was unanimous, I think, among people that raised their hands. They all believed this argument. They said that they were required by the FDA to label their products as kratom.
I remember that. Yes. Yeah, I remember when they were trying to sell that.
Yeah. And I said, no, you are required on your supplement panel, the fact panel, you are required to disclose the contents of your product, which will likely include small amounts of metrogeny. That's what you have to do. You are not required under any scenario in the federal government laws to say that your product, because it contains metrogeny, must be labeled as a kratom product. This is the kind of deception that they were involved in, and they hung on to in order to justify why they were on the market. And I had a couple of people after that meeting, because I was frustrated with it. And I'm not known to be a wallflower. I'm pretty straightforward in what I think. And I told them that was utter nonsense. It was not true. And they're all worked up. And a couple of the manufacturers of the 7OH material came up to me and said, well, you can see the problem we have with these people, because we just manufacture the raw material. We white label their products, but they're the ones who get to decide what they call it. And one of them, who's a major manufacturer of 7OH raw materials, said, I wish they would change. But remember, this wasn't about entering the marketplace with a product that's called 7OH, because in order to, if they label it as kratom, that's what they get, right?
They got to fly under the radar doing that.
They wanted to manipulate the marketplace. They wanted to take the kratom consumers of natural kratom leaf products. They wanted to mislead and deceive them in order to buy their so-called kratom advanced alkaloid products, because they knew that once there, what happens? You have a product that avoids the gut, goes right to the bloodstream, crosses the blood-brain barrier, gets to the euphoric high center of your brain, gives you a fast high, crashes hard, gets you addicted within a couple of days, and you end up with significant risk of respiratory suppression, because that's the signature of a traditional opioid, because that's what 7OH is.
Let's not forget the huge billboards that were put up.
The marketing was
free 7OH.
Yeah. And look what they're doing today. You can get a free packet of 300 milligram opia if you document that you have submitted a comment to the HHS website. They're going to give you 300 milligram packages of 7OH in doing that. What? This is this is what is so insane about people. They can't help themselves because the money's more important than public safety. The money's far more important than being removed from the market with an unsafe product. And I'll say it again to Madeline Sklar and anyone else on the 7OH gals. You want to justify being able to allow a consumer to be exposed to a dangerous, life-threatening product on the street corner. That's on you. You want them to be able to buy it at a retail establishment. You all say, "Oh, let's not let a drug dealer do it," but you're going to let a kid in a convenience store sell it to an unsuspecting consumer. There's something insane about that policy.
There is multiple reasons why Jen and I left the Kratom Gals
I
in
just
May
say
of
we
2025. There's multiple reasons
mhm,
why, and you guys are seeing the outcome of some of the
yeah.
reasons.
I think we have a completely different definition of advocacy
Yeah.
than yeah.
I just wanted to throw that out there, you guys. That right there, I cannot make it make sense how a Kratom advocate can advocate for 7OH when 7OH has been taking down Kratom this whole entire year. I don't understand it. And I will continue flexing the probably over 300 hearings that we've attended to now, that and you weren't nowhere to be found. Neither were 7OHers.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't understand it. What money is motivating you?
Well, no,
You
wait a
know?
minute. Are you telling me that you participated in all those hearings, the majority of which were virtual hearings, where people could just sign up and go on? Are you telling me that?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
surely Robin Graham was on those meetings with you, right?
No. No.
No, wait, no, that's not possible because she tells people to get off their butts and go advocate. And Madeline Sklar is saying, "Oh, it's so important for the states that you live in because your voice is proportionately more significant than people that are out of staters." She said that, and you had Robin Graham saying, "Get off your butts and go and testify," and they tried to gloss over that and mischaracterize it, but that's what she said. And she hasn't been to not one of 7 hearings, 5 of which were virtual. What in the hell is going on here? And yet the 7OH gals, they just putter along, Now, I have to say that I appreciate the fact that you have not censored me. You haven't blocked me from coming on. I've thought about what could I say that might contradict something you think that would give you the justification for eliminating me because I have a different point of view. So I'll tell you what I think it is. I think that the shade of pink on your earphones, Misty, should be a darker shade. Okay, I think that. So
On my earphones? I got pink on my earphones? What are you talking
Yeah, you
about?
got on your little kitty cat things.
yeah, your little rabbit ears things. I
Oh,
think
my
it should be.
cats?
Yes, I think it should be a darker shade. Isn't it pink? Aren't they pink?
No,
They
they're
look like
white.
oh, well, they
They're
do look
white like myself.
Then I think they should be pink. Forget the white. So you can ban me. You can say we're not talking to Mac again because he thinks that these earphones should be pink. And so therefore we're not talking to him. And then I'll get on and I'll comment. Well, I didn't mean to offend you. I just wanted to state my belief about the pink earphones. And then you can block me for a day. And then have the audacity to say, I didn't block him. I just removed him for a day. Their podcasts are 2 hours long maximum usually. So she blocked me for the entire period of the podcast, so I couldn't interact with people in the comments. Not talking to them directly, interact on the comments. And then she has the guts to say, "But I only blocked him for a day." So it's not the same as Max said. He's lying when he says I blocked him. I only blocked him for a day. What is she talking about? I mean, I don't know, but I think that's what a person that would say they're on 7H would say. Because
Well,
they'd
well, we could put YouTube commenters in timeout. So the only way you can know if you're blocked is, can you go over there and reply on any of her videos? If you can't reply to any of her videos, then she blocked you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, she blocked me for that comment period when I was just saying I was interacting with other commenters, and she blocked me because she thought it was too disruptive. And I never said one unkind thing to anybody. I just said, "Here's my view." I answered some questions, but that was diverting attention, I guess, from the 7OH is great message that she was promoting. Oh, I'm not promoting 7OH should be available to people. I just, and then here, it's really interesting. She got really offended when I called her a libertarian. Well, I was talking about her libertarian view, and she obviously doesn't understand what it is because it's not a negative thing. I have many friends who are libertarians. I don't agree with them all the time. Libertarians just say live and let live, no rules. You just do what you want to do. And she was deeply offended. I called her a libertarian, and yet she attends the 7OH webinars. She brings the 7OH advocates on her show, and she says I can't participate because I'm a lobbyist. Well, does she think that the people that they're bringing on the show are not lobbyists and advocates that way? I mean, what is she talking about? Do they not participate advocating on behalf of an organization that they're paid to advocate for? They're the same as me. Why did they get a special category difference? It's
What's
really
up, Chad? I see. You know what, Chad? And I see. Regulate Creative now. I know who you guys are. I love your comments that you give
Yeah.
out on TikTok and X and Reddit. Yeah, Michelle Ross blocked me for politely pointing out that she did not, in fact, fight for Kratom in California. She blocked me last year after I called. She was talking about how she attends all these hearings and stuff. You know what? The thing that I love, Mac, is when people say that they attend all these hearings, right? Not realizing that Jen and I record these hearings that we've been doing for years now. Well, I'd say about a year and a half or so. But anyway, when someone says that they attend all these hearings, I'm like, okay, which hearing did you attend? Because I can go look at my recording. But
Yeah.
anyway, Michelle blocked me after I called her out on that. I'm like, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. And then another lie that Michelle tells on me is that she was standing behind me in a line at Champs last year, overhearing me say that I hate 7OH users. I have never said that
Well,
I hate the person.
that's their whole thing that they do. They act like we're just over here demonizing the consumers.
Mm-mm.
Like we're just talking so bad about them. We just hate them.
We hate the substance. We don't
Yeah.
hate the people that got duped into the substance.
I feel horrible for the people
Me
that got
too.
duped into it.
Yeah. So I can't wait. I cannot wait now that you've said what you just said, Misty, for Robin to come back at me and say, "There's evidence that I attended these hearings because Misty has it." I can't wait for that.
We got so like this is what I'm saying. We dedicate this is advocacy. We go where we're needed. We go testify. It's 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a virtual hearing, which I thought was hilarious when a 708 over there on Reddit said, "Oh, she must be getting paid by the
Flying all
AKA
over the place. Yeah, the AKA just flying Misty everywhere.
to attend 300 hearings." Like that? What?
Yeah, it's really unfortunate because there's nothing unusual about people just jumping to conclusions. I mean,
Oh yeah.
and I don't blame too many of the people in the 7OH people who, without all of the misinformation that's floating by Seven Hope Alliance and by Heart, they might jump to conclusions that are incorrect. I get that. But when it's spiked by this incessant feeding of misinformation to the Kratom community by Seven Hope Alliance, I mean, it's just really amazing that this kind of thing happens, and then they all act innocent. I mean, it's like, oh, I didn't do that. I mean, what are you talking about? It's you guys are the bad guys. And that's pretty stunning because, that we ought to, at the end of the day, I've always believed that you should have at least as much respect as people are earned to give them, right? And so civil conversations are important. I try to be that. I don't always achieve it, but I try. We ought to be discussing the facts, not our emotions, and, not the profanity that I mean, you go on the X account and you see the comments that they make. I mean, it's a sad case because if they think that this is going to be persuasive to a public official, an elected official, they're wrong because they appear to be unhinged.
Yeah.
They appear completely off the planet in terms of having a rational discussion.
If you guys haven't seen Mac Haddow's X account comments, go read those comments over there.
Yeah. And Mac, I have seen you do webinars and everything with people that have called you every name in the book. I wouldn't have given them the time of day
Yeah.
if they asked me, if they would have treated me like they did you. I've seen you be very fair you're always open to an honest discussion, and you want it to be upfront and open so everybody can be a part of it. And I don't see anything. Honesty is always the best way to go. Honesty and respect. But
Mhm.
not everybody has that. When they start calling you names and attacking you and threatening you, saying you're gonna have blood on your hands, I mean, at some point, it
You
just
know
Yeah.
what? I saw your comment too, Mac, about you want to talk about the blank check the 7OH industry gave you,
Offered, offered.
offered.
Yeah, if we were, that was the interesting thing because they make it out to be, oh, well, you're just out for the almighty dollar, and you got all these kratom, natural leaf kratom companies that are supporting the AKA. When we had the discussion with the Heart Group, they literally offered a blank check, anything that's necessary. One of the owners of one of the 7OH companies called me up and said, if you get on board with us, I got millions that you will have available to you. When I refused to do that, refused to accept the blank check, he came back, same guy, and said, I have $20 million and I'm going to destroy you personally and take down the AKA. Now, that guy is out leading seminars on this. He obviously had the money, by the way, because they were raking in the dough here for the last 3 years
yeah.
or longer.
Mhm.
Uh, but it would have been easy to say, "Oh, well, let's cower in fear. Let's work a deal. Let's accept their blank check. Let's all roll together and try to figure out some way to do it." And that's why I find it fascinating that they try to make this into a turf war. This is a
Mhm.
battle between the big natural leaf kratom companies and the big 7OH companies, and they like to sell that narrative. It's a turf war. If we were a turf war, what the hell was I doing advocating on behalf of the American Kratom Association in 2018 that we should limit the amount of 7OH in products because it was unsafe? Products that exceeded those levels were unsafe to consumers because we've always adhered to the principle that we protect consumer safety. And why am I advocating for legislation that says you cannot exceed the FDA approved food grade solvent extraction? It's USP 467, which limits the potency of the products. What are they talking about? I
Yeah.
mean, we from the day one have protected consumer safety. And if there's anybody that can show me where the so-called 7OH consumer community is sending a lot of money to Heart or to Seven Hope Alliance, you can look at our 990s and you'll see that we get individual consumers who contribute to us. There's a category that we're involved in right now with litigation because we've been sued by trial attorneys, and that balloons our contribution level, which are covered by the indemnification we have with some of these companies that are involved in this. But that's not advocacy, and our advocacy is funded in large part by consumer contributions and always has been. But again, this is about backlash, finger pointing. This is about
Yep.
retaliation. And it's not about a discussion about consumer safety. It's not about the safety of the products themselves. It's not about the packaging or the attractiveness and the product formulations that will impact kids. None of that. It's all about get out of our way. Either join us, jump on the bandwagon. You'll be on for the party. And it was really interesting. One of the discussions that I had with them, they pointed out something that's true. They said, "You're an older guy and you're not going to be around for more than a couple of years. So why don't you ride along?" I thought, what? But
Mm.
that was their view. They said, "Oh, Haddow's going to retire in a couple of years, so what does he care? Let's just get this thing done, and we can ride the wave here for a couple of years."
There's so
And
many people in this world that just don't do things for the right reason, and it's, um, even legislation, lawmakers, yada yada. So I think people just genuinely don't believe people do things for the right reason anymore, and that's just not true.
yeah,
Like us, we get accused for being paid advocates all the
Exactly.
time.
right, right. And all I can do is up the number of prayers that I say for you so that you are adequately compensated, because that's how you get compensated. Uh, I had a similar experience back in 1994 where I was heavily involved with Senator Hatch and the advocates in the dietary supplement industry, where we were trying to fight for the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act to be enacted, because the FDA at that point was going after all dietary supplements. And the battle between individual consumers of dietary supplements, not the companies, because they were all in chaotic disarray, much like the creative industry in some respects, but the pharma companies were coming after us. And you talk about big bucks battles. And the thing that won the day was that you had a highly principled U.S. senator and a representative, Richardson from New Mexico, who were the chief sponsors of the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act. And they stood against, they had all the offers. Hey, you stand down from this legislation and we're going to fill your coffers with all the money you need for your reelection campaigns into the future, right? And both of them, I sat in the meetings, both of them said, no, go pound sand. We're not interested in that. This is about accessibility for consumers of products that help maintain their health and wellness. So from 94, you fast forward to today, same dynamics. We'll offer you a lot of money if you just shut up. That's sort of the message.
Yeah. Yeah.
We didn't shut up. They're ticked off. We're back in the fight. And people need to understand that there is a significant amount of money behind the 7-OH industry. They're going to lose in what, 20 days, or maybe it's less than that. They're going to lose this market. And they're going to rely upon the black market, the so-called black market. And that's unfortunate. It's true. There will be some of that, but they're at risk. And I think the first couple of felony convictions that come down, if it comes down on them, then I think it's going to dry up that marketplace. Then you'll be left with a very small segment of these high-risk products that will be sold on the black market, and then they'll just pick them off one after another because there'll be so much attention to it. And guess what? There'll be plenty of people willing to blow the whistle on them, saying, they're out there selling. They'll identify them. They'll buy the products, just like I do. I buy products that are 7-OH products and the MGM-15 products all the time, and they send them to the American Kratom Association for us to take and test. I don't understand that. They do. So they're not even good criminals, and I think that's that'll bite them in the ass when it comes back.
Oh my God. So, I want people to think about this. So everybody wants to, harp on Mac for being an ex-felon, but imagine an ex-felon being handed a blank check from an industry that's probably they got to be at the billions now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They've had to supersede millions. So imagine that. But let's think about the other ex-felons. You got Vince Sanders, and then you got Jeff Smith. They both happily sign those checks.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I say, I mean, this is, for me, it's 40 years ago. I was caught in a bad situation where there was a document that I did not have access to. I'd left it in the files at HHS. It was my only defense because it's conflict of interest statute. And the indictment that was issued by the department required me to have as a defense this document. I didn't have it. After I pled guilty, and I refused, in order to plead guilty in a proceeding like this, you have to say to the judge, I did it. I said, I'm not going to do that. And so out of frustration in my negotiations with the Department of Justice, they said, well, will you plead guilty to the 10-day period between the waiver not having been signed and the first check that your wife got and working as assisting with fundraising for this nonprofit group? And I pled guilty to the 10 days. I can honestly say, now, 10 days didn't mean anything to anybody. It was an administrative matter, but that was the way I could honestly say to the judge, okay, I'm guilty for that 10 days. And that's what the record shows. Then 3 months later, 2.5 months later, someone produced the document from the files of the department. And they said this was signed. When they asked Margaret Heckler, who was the person who signed it, did you sign this? And she said, yes, that's my signature, but I wouldn't have signed it if I'd read it, which is not the standard. By the way, that wasn't true. But that's the standard. She signed it. I didn't have to have her blessing, and she understood every word of it, even if she wanted to say that. So the judge says, okay, I'm not going to send this guy to prison. I'm not going to sentence him. It looks like he had a full waiver. And the Department of Justice came back and said, no, he pled guilty to the 10 days when it wasn't signed. I mean, they never would have indicted me in the first place. So now Jack Anderson did 3 stories about it, and he was then you guys won't recognize his name, but he at the time was this huge investigative journalist that did reports nationally. He did 3 articles on my case. People go back and read it. That's vastly different than Vince Sanders' case.
Yes.
I mean, now that's no defense. I I violated the law for that 10 days,
Mhm.
and I pled guilty to it, and I accepted, and I lived with it. And I had to make a
Eh,
choice. When
mhm.
when I finished that sentence, there was an argument from my wife and some others. You should leave Washington, D.C., go home and just do something else. And I remember the my primary client at the time, which was a generic drug manufacturer. Uh, I picked him up at the airport prior to the sentencing, and the Department of Justice had challenged me to take a polygraph, and they wanted me to take the polygraph with the chief polygraph investigator of the FBI who had just retired, and he'd opened up a private practice. I agreed to do that. And so when I took the polygraph, my attorney was late, and so he didn't come in until afterwards. I was sitting in a room outside of the room where they do these. The polygraph expert came out. His name was Wiltz, a former FBI guy, and the attorney had just walked in, and Wiltz turned to my attorney and said he passed with flying colors. He was telling the truth, and my attorney said, "Holy f, I can't believe it." My
He's
attorney
like,
doing, right? What's my attorney doing? Not to be representing me, not believing it. But when I picked up my client at the airport at Washington National, I was taking him downtown. This is before I actually got sentenced. I handed the envelope to him, and he said, "What's this?" And I said, "That's the polygraph that I took that shows I was telling the truth." And he didn't open it. He handed it back to me and said, "I don't need this." He said, "I believed you from the start." And
yeah.
what a powerful thing. So that made a big difference for me to decide, do I stay in Washington? Do I continue being a government relations guy, a lobbyist? I decided to do it. And so I've lived here in Washington in the biggest glass bubble in the world, doing advocacy work for clients that I've had over the past 40 years since that incident occurred. And I've done just fine. I go into offices, and rare occasions when people that I'm having fights with for my clients will bring it up. And I've never once had someone say in a congressional office, "Well, you can't come in and see us because of this." Most of them say, "But for the grace of God, there go I," right? And so because
Yeah.
the complex and all that. So I mean, the fact that they want to bring it up now as a weapon against me is
Mhm.
really a pox on their own
I
house.
think it's almost just
Mm.
an insult. I mean, how many times I can't tell you I how many mistakes I've made in my, early 20s for sure, but we all learn from mistakes. We all grow from them. I would never throw somebody's past up just it's almost just to be rude, just
They
to
do it like
jab
it's
at
a
you.
yeah, they do it like it's a, "Oh, we gotcha.
And half of
We
the
gotcha."
7OH consumers, I'm sure, I mean,
And
many
that
people have passed they
I
don't talk about.
agree. But look at Dean Francis. He does the same thing. And
Mhm.
his son, who he claims was the impetus for him getting involved, his son had alcohol problems, has
Yeah.
multiple interactions with the law, with still unresolved resolution in those cases where he could easily end up with convictions. And see, that doesn't matter, because anything they can use as a weapon in order to fire across the bow to try to take someone down, that's what they're about. So they missed the mark with me because I have always been open. I have to declare in every lobbying report that I file, every time I filed, and I just did it a couple of days ago here, it was yesterday or 2 days ago, I have to file my conviction report. I tell my clients, I'm not hiding anything. And they want to act like, oh, some big surprise, this is a nefarious thing.
Yeah.
The American Kratom Association knew about this conviction when they hired me. And this is just their, and I think someone just commented, they're lashing out. That's what it
Yeah.
is. They don't want to deal with the reality of what we're actually doing here. And they can't believe that anyone might take a principled stand that disagrees with them. That's it.
Yeah.
And they think they're right. And so they're justified in firing across the bow any argument that they can conjure up in order to do it. And what they don't want to talk about is, did they meet the federal law prior to market entry? No. Did they currently, do they meet the federal law in order to put products on the market? No. Do they label their products according to federal law? No. So they get these constant barrage of violations that they're currently engaged in, and the only thing they could come up with is, well, what about the people that are hooked on these products now? Well, you hooked them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And by the way, we have laws that, whether we like them or not, we have to adhere to. And you just can't say, "Well, I don't like that law, so I'm gonna avoid it." Now, I confess that there are occasions that I exceed the speed limit. And so I take a risk, right? But there are laws that are important here. And here you've got one that protects the safety of the public. That's all it does. And they simply have to conform to it. And the way to do it is to conduct a safety study. They did one and it failed miserably because
Yeah.
the product is so powerful. And so they tried to change the study parameters in the middle of the study, and the beagle still suffered neurological problems at a dose lower by significant factors
Much lower, yeah.
than what Vince Sanders' product was. And so, whoop, that didn't work. And so now they're out, thrashing around. So, it would be comical except for the impact on the consumers who were duped, misled, and lied to about the products that they were buying, all thinking that this is just kratom. And when they buy a sublingual strip that gets in that euphoric high immediately, and then gets you hooked because you crash, you say, I need more. That's something. And then you have, and we haven't gotten to much of this. You have on the other side of the spectrum the anti-kratom, all anti-kratom people.
Mhm.
You've got the Dean Francis, you've got Andrew Kolodny, you've got the KDA, and you have Patty Wheeler. Patty Wheeler, who just was up on Facebook yesterday, celebrating that she sold finally the streaming rights to her documentary. The documentary that she said was only to educate people, not to ban kratom. She didn't want any kratom consumer to be deprived of the right to do it. She just wanted it regulated. And then within a couple of weeks of saying that, in a national podcast, she goes out to Utah, gets a blessing from Senator Mike McKell, and suddenly she's all for a ban. And she says it. But the most important thing is, she said on camera, when asked by a reporter, are you sure it was kratom? And she said, 100%. The medical examiner told me. And then you look at the tox report, and it shows that metrogenine was present, not quantifiable. In other words, they tested for it. They couldn't find a level that would have led anyone in this world, much less a medical examiner, to say, oh, kratom killed your kid. There were other drugs that were quantifiable in the system, so it wasn't a glitch. I mean, it was a reality. And she was on a television report on Friday in California, repeating
Florida.
the same thing.
In
Florida. Yes. Yeah, in Florida, repeating the same nonsense. Oh, kratom killed my kid, 100%. And he was consuming massive quantities of kratom. And then she just like Dean Francis's Cameron's son, changes the story.
Yeah.
And trying to move the story to the reality that she's not telling the truth. And at least from the evidence that's there, and in my opinion, and that's all I can go by looking at the tox report, there is no justification for claiming there were massive quantities of any kratom product being consumed by her son when the tox screen from the death shows no quantifiable level of metrogeny. It just doesn't happen. And by the way, when you listen to what she says, the medical examiner told her that she had a couple of cases reported to her by other medical examiners in the Fort Worth area in the 2 years preceding his case, her son's case, were saying that kratom was involved in these. Well, okay.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah. Why does the medical examiner fess up? Hey, I made a mistake here. I overreacted. I responded to what I was hearing on the chat boards. This isn't a third grade little girls talking in the restroom. This is real life.
Yeah.
And yet this is what happens. And so for Patty Wheeler to publicly continue to say, when she knows better, that kratom killed her kid, there's only one reason I can think of. There must be a lawsuit lurking in the background.
Where's that buck you got?
Yeah, where's that buck?
Hold on.
Yeah, all about the almighty dollar.
I'll bet. No, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to tell you how confident I am in this. I will bet $20. $20 that she's got litigation against the kratom company.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Why would she be doing this? And why does she get away with getting on these news reporters? The news reporter doesn't say, oh, wait a minute. Tell me exactly how much kratom was on the talk screen.
You know who needs to interview her is that same lady who interviewed Vince Sanders when they were walking around his factory.
Yeah.
And yeah. I remember her saying something like, I'm paraphrasing here, but you don't think it's weird that you don't have any safety studies? Something like that.
Isn't it weird that your tox screen on your son didn't show massive quantities of metrozine being consumed immediately prior to his death? You know, the one that the death that led to a seizure. Now, did any of those other drugs that were in the system that were quantified by the tox screen, could they have led to a seizure? Why doesn't someone ask that question? But see,
That's
that
the
doesn't.
thing, yeah. Journalism is, I don't know if it's always been dead, but it just seems like they all just go with the same story, and
Yeah.
just it's sad.
I might have overreached. I was going to see if I have a $10 bill.
I haven't seen a $10 bill for ages.
So I'll bet a $5 bill. I don't need
Oh,
to.
Lincoln. We're getting Lincoln in on it now.
Man, you know what? I have to say, so, anybody, like I said, anybody who wants to try to shove that, Mac is a felon in his face or in our faces, you know what? It was 40 years ago. Think about it. 40 years ago, in that time frame,
Yeah.
he could have done some major other stuff, and he hasn't.
And if you get mad at us, anybody, if you get mad at people for doing the right thing and genuinely trying to do the right thing, that's on you. That seems like that's a you problem. You know what I mean? I'd be more than happy. I'm more than happy that people get mad at me for trying to do the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So keep on
And
getting mad.
in my active addiction, look, I would have been a felon because honestly, I forged a prescription, and the pharmacist didn't want to press charges at the time, so the cops didn't know what to do, so they let me go, right? I moved out of that city. I got pulled over for my DUI that I had because I was high on my pills. And the cop says, "Oh, you're a fugitive of justice," So I had a warrant for my arrest. I go to, I get put in jail. I get bonded out. What does my butt do when I get bonded out? I go steal stuff from Walmart. I get arrested for stealing stuff. Then I'm in jail for 36 days waiting for my case to get before the judge and all that stuff. So I pleaded down on the felony part, to just DUI I pleaded guilty for the DUI, and then for the felony, for the prescription part, I pleaded down to that I was that I had the controlled substances on me when I never did because the pharmacist didn't give it to me. But that's me. I would have been a felon,
Yeah.
But I paid a lot of money for that DUI. I paid like 10 grand for that DUI. Did it ever stop me from driving while I was on my pills? No, it didn't.
Yeah, but I mean, nobody would be where they are today without making the choices we made in the past. Some of them were bad, some of them were good, but I would never redo it because I wouldn't want to change anything.
And, ever since I found Kratom in 2019, I refuse to lie. I will not lie about anything because that's what I did for 11 years. I lied, begged, borrowed,
nothing worse than a liar. Like a liar, a thief.
So I am really big on honesty and integrity. And let me just go and, segue into the whole seeing Kratom advocates haven't given people the space for 708ers to talk. I still can't understand that. I cannot understand. How are you not understanding that 708 is why you are doing your live stream? 708 is why you are showing those news reports. 708 is why Kratom has been getting banned left and right, state by state, county by county, city by city. I don't understand how you don't understand that. So I don't support you. And like I said earlier, there's multiple reasons why Jen and I left the Kratom Gals in May of 2025. We did not get fired. There's a rumor going around that from KDA that, you got fired. No, we didn't. We did not get fired.
What group is the Kratom Gals?
Oh, shit. Okay.
We just woke up.
So I don't know. I don't understand it.
Yeah, I hate to pick on them, but we're all accountable for our behaviors, and if they want to hold others accountable, they have to be accountable too. And this major shift by Madeline Sklar in order to now be outed for what she has been for the last year and a half, which is an apologist for and an advocate for 7-OH, which she's going to prove when she goes on there and she'll say, I don't use it. She doesn't have to use it. She's advocating for it. She's giving permission for people to use this. And that's what she's doing. And for all her protests to the contrary, she's running the 7-OH Gals podcast. That's what it is, because that's what it's become. Anyone who wants to doubt that, just go and listen to them. Pick any one of their podcasts this year, pick it out, and then listen to them for their 2 hours, and tell me you don't walk away saying they're apologists for the 7-OH industry. They are, and they can hide it, shield it, they can color it, they can transform it, they can dress it up any way they choose. They're the 7-OH cows.
If 7-OH is used therapeutically for people in chronic pain, that needs to go through the drug trials. It needs to go through the drug trials. There's no way 7-OH and kratom can coexist on the market today at all, period, point blank.
Right. And like I've said, even the chronic pain patients that have found themselves getting relief, even those people are finding that it's not lasting long. They're finding they're having to keep on, every 2 hours or so, they're having to take it. Like there's something wrong. There's more that needs to be done. If it is therapeutic, if it is helping people, it needs to go through the proper channels.
Period. I want to know what the unknown compounds are.
Yeah.
We did a live stream with Jordan the other day on TikTok, and we talk about how McCurdy has $1 million equipment. The fact that McCurdy cannot identify the unknown compounds that are in those 7-OH products, just what?
Yeah.
Are they just like alien?
Well, that's part of the extraction process. And what happens when you apply powerful chemicals to the metrogenine powder in order to convert it to 7-OH, you are going to have artifacts that are produced by the chemical interaction, which are unknown. It's not the catalyst that's being used, baking soda or high content chlorine or whatever other solvents they want to use. It's what's produced in the chemical interaction between the two, and those are just as relevant to the evaluation of the safety of a product as anything else. Right. It is why we don't want any kratom extract manufacturer exceeding the USP 467 standard for the solvents you use, because you can take regular kratom, you can extract it using formaldehyde, and you will get a very powerful extract of kratom, and it will be dangerous. And so that's why you have to limit what happens there to the FDA food grade solvents along the way. So that's really important. It is not surprising to me that 7-OH consumers will report that this is helping them with their pain. Not surprising a bit, because it powerfully helps. It gets right to the opioid receptors.
Yeah.
It activates them much more effectively and powerfully than metrogenine. And here's the interesting thing: metrogenine and naturally occurring levels of 7-OH, when you consume a kratom product, goes through your gut, and you'll see that the liver converts 7-OH, metrogenine to 7-OH at some level, very relatively low levels. What happens when it hits your mu-opioid receptors, and this is why the research is so important, is metrogenine competes at the mu-opioid level for the activation of that mu-opioid receptor. It starts to block the effect of the 7-OH. So this is what Dr. McCurdy calls this beautiful symphony of the alkaloids all working together. Not when you pull one out and you let it become and it ruins the symphony. Blaring, you've all seen the kid I've seen him in my grandkids and my kids' concerts in high school. There's some kid there that ain't playing symphonic music because he just started blaring, right? Well, that's what happens in 7-OH conversion. So the natural occurring levels of metrogenine are competing for the activity at the mu-opioid receptor. Take out the metrogenine. It's no longer competing. It directly activates, gets that mu-opioid receptor, goes right to the sector of the brain that gives you that euphoric high. That's why kratom's a partial agonist and doesn't go to that activation of the sector of your brain that gives you that euphoric high.
And it's it's slow and self-limiting. And it's like you said, McCurdy. I used to whenever I'd hear McCurdy say that about the symphony orchestra thing, it's such a perfect analogy for it,
Yeah.
But you
Well,
take the 708 out, put it on full blast. That's like the tuba kid over there.
Well, and you're
No.
mixing other stuff in it that who knows?
yeah,
When
exactly.
you
So
it's
no,
just
I have to confess that when I was in high school, after was junior high, uh, I could think they call it middle school now. I was required to take a chorus class, and I had to go and sing with people. And the teacher pulled me aside and said, "Mac, if you will stop singing, I will give you an A.
Oh my
If
god.
you continue, you're getting a C, which is the lowest thing you could have in class." I said, what if and I was on the audio visual club, and all of our equipment was right next to the course room. I said, what if I don't come to class at all? What will you give me? Because she offered to let me lip sync at one point, and she would give me an A. And I said, what if I don't come at all? And she goes, I'll give you an A, no problem. So I negotiated my way. I went and sat and worked on the audiovisual equipment. So there are some people just not, there's the 708. I'm the 708 in a chorus. It ruins everything for everybody, right? And it would be awful. And there would be people demanding their money back when the parents did their concerts. 708 is bad stuff. And when it's concentrated, it becomes the majority of the product. You lose that symphonic effect that Dr.
mhm,
McCurdy talks about. And it's interesting because in its natural form, when it goes through the gut, it's slow. The
Mhm.
conversion to 7-OH is very slow, never reaches the blood plasma levels that you see in 7-OH products. So they can't, we hear Michelle Ross, oh, it's the same thing. And, it produces in the gut. No, it does not. And that's never at the levels that they're talking about. And they do these testing all the time when they're testing patients on this. So here's the bottom line. They want desperately to have an access to the market for a very dangerous opioid, and that's all it is. And
yeah,
and what about the people that are hooked on it right now? They're going to, some of them are going to have to find treatment.
mhm,
There's no question. But the reason they're gaining relief for the pain that they're suffering is because the product they're taking is an opioid. I have never said that opioids weren't important in the pain management community. Kolodny has. I think that you need to have, uh, you know, some kind of control on this. And when you're addressing the pain needs of a patient, you need to give them the appropriate level. If it's opioids, fine, but managed, prescribed appropriately, not Kolodny's view of the world, because he was working for obviously the Suboxone group.
Mhm.
You just, at least that's my opinion of it, based on the evidence that I've seen. So here we are in this conundrum. The conundrum is we're now sitting at the point where 7-OH is going to get banned because of the bad actions of the manufacturers who placed it in the market illegally without any concern whatever for the consumers that are taking it for their safety. Now you've got a whole sector of the natural kratom leaf community got duped, misled, and deceived, and they're now hooked. And now we're saying, oh, we can't let them, have a problem
yeah.
because it's in. What kind of thinking is that? And yet that's their message.
And
Uh,
and when you normalize something, and day after day, you tell if you're having a good experience with it, and you tell the story and you normalize it and you have more people. I mean, that's advocacy, is it not?
Mhm.
I mean,
Oh
I
no,
just,
no,
you
Ken,
know,
you can't call that advocacy. That's like being a lobbyist. That's a bad. I mean, come
You know,
on.
my
I,
bad.
I look at like, okay, because there's a lot of people inside the kratom community that started taking 7-OH,
Or that's
and
part of advocacy.
yeah, and I look at it like, okay, you cheated on kratom with 7-OH. 7-OH went and got another woman pregnant, which created pseudoindoxil and MGM 15 and 16 and all that stuff, right? You know, and it's like they're going to go away to prison for life because they killed the husband of the woman that they. I don't know if you guys are following along, but
I
they
get
killed
you.
the husband of the 7-OH. So MGM 15, 16, pseudoindoxil, and 7-OH are going to prison for life. Now you guys want to come back to kratom, to the original person that you cheated on, and you want us to accept you with open arms back after you done Murdered.
or murder kratom.
Yes, after you done
That's a good
murdered
one too.
kratom.
So here's the truth, and I'm speaking from a hypothetical situation of being in prison, and you get a visitor, and the visitor comes in and they hand you over the drugs that put you in prison in the first place. And I kind of observed that happening in the visitor centers of some of these people, and then they suffered the effects of that drug. That's tragic. But
Yeah.
you don't get visitation rights under the Controlled Substances Act to come in and say, well, let me just give a little bit of 7-OH, this banned drug, to this individual who's begging for it. That's not the way it works. And so, are there options? This is the tough part. Are there options? You're not going to find the option at a convenience store. The
No.
options can be found when you go to your physician. You say, "Look, I've got a problem with chronic pain or acute pain, whatever it is, and I need to find an answer." Some people will be able to go back to natural kratom leaf products, and they'll just reconfigure their needs to that. Some will be able to do that. Some are now trapped because of the deliberate actions by the 7-OH manufacturers to hook them, all in the name of the almighty dollar, and they're now suckered in, and they are fully addicted, and that's going to take treatment.
Yeah.
And if anything, the 7-OH people, when they're writing their checks, ought to be thinking about what it's going to cost them in order to fund the treatment. And I think the government should take a hard look at going after those people. And certainly consumers ought to take a hard look about having been addicted to these products that were never on the market legally, to be compensated for what they're going to have to go through. It's awful. I get it. And in fact, I feel terrible about the situation that many of these people are in. But it was not of their making, other than they weren't accountable for looking at what was obvious in front of them. Oh, I just took this kratom product and man, it whacked me.
They lacked informed consent, Mac. There was no informed consent when this came out to market.
I agree. And I think that's why they could make a good argument for litigation against these 7-OH manufacturers.
Narco-terrorism might be in there too.
Yeah.
Honestly. But a lot of, per our advocacy, Mac, what people are doing are, I explained this last week. There's like different camps here. They will, to get off 7-OH, they will use a lab tested metragenine full spectrum extract. They will use that for the first 3, 4, 5 days, something like that. Then they will transition onto the whole leaf powder, and then they will just taper down from there if they're just done. But most people will just stay on the powder. They won't go back to touching extracts, and they definitely won't go back to touching 7-OH. But then you have this other camp over here that will just go straight to, just taking a full spectrum extract, and just be fine with that, And then you have the third camp that gets on mat treatment.
Yeah.
So, but it's doable. There are options out here.
There are options.
So Andrew Kolodny will be there to welcome them into his Suboxone treatment programs, and that's unfortunate. And something about Kolodny was very interesting. He's now in bed with Dean Francis, obviously, and he was on a kratom sobriety podcast talking about and repeating the same kind of misrepresentation, in my opinion, about his experience in treating patients, because he stood before the Suffolk County and has now in this podcast talked about this, that when he's gotten back into treating patients, which he said he did about a year ago, he said that every one of them that's presented that comes to him is addicted to kratom. That's what he says. And he repeats it. Now, he kind of blew the whistle on himself when he was describing in Suffolk County, where he said, my patients are ones that I am asked to come and advise on for patients who come to the hospital, tell the doctor that they're addicted to kratom. He said, and my responsibility is I'm a consult. So he's not the doctor that screened the patient, right? The patient shows up and self-declares they're hooked on kratom, whatever, and that could be 7-OH, obviously. He admits that 7-OH is part of this.
Yep.
And then he says, but all 100% of my patients, well, it's because, that's a self-selected category, isn't it? I show up and I tell people the checkout line here at Walmart is only for potato chips. Then I can say, I only check out potato chips. I mean, what is this guy doing? Now, my analogy is not as good as yours. My goodness, this guy wants to sit with a straight face and say to people, yeah, all my patients are hooked on kratom. He's standing at a bed with the patient who has entered, into the facility claiming they're hooked on kratom, probably 7-OH, telling another doctor, the doctor asked for Kolodny to come in on a consult, and 100% of his patients are addicted to kratom. This guy, and by the way, there's no way a professional scientist who understands statistics and how patient statistics are reported would say that with a straight face. He knows what he's saying is not true.
Yeah.
He knows it, but he doesn't care because this is about selling the message that he's now on this crusade along with Dean Francis. Look at that, partners on a boat. And he's on with the ADA, and he's on with God knows who else. Now you've got into the mix. You've got, Michelle Ross. Think about captaining that ship. This is going to go down, but we need to make sure that they're held accountable for every goofy thing that they're saying today, and including Kolodny getting up there and just making up whatever stuff he wants to make up in order to support his claim that kratom is an opioid. And what does he do? He justifies it in a 2014 textbook that doesn't say what he says it's saying. He says that none other than FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb said it was an opioid, and he bases it on a computer model developed by the career staff at the FDA, which was roundly excoriated by other scientists in the field, said it's nonsense. And then he says, well, if they said it, it must be true. Now, as a scientist, he knows that science evolves. He knows that we have more informed science present today, but he wants to put on blinders. And so I don't know. Now I need $100 bill. This is his blinder.
Yeah.
He cannot see past this. He's looking at bucks to be consulting on these, criminal trial cases or the product liability cases with respect to 7-OH and kratom. He just wants on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
That's all this is about.
And we're
It's
going to fight back.
mind-blowing seeing people like anybody get up and say the things that we've seen over the.
Did you see that Dr. Michelle All? I don't know how you say her last name. The lady that was in the Georgia hearing, the Blue Ribbon hearing, she, praised him on her X account. She praised Kolodny.
Yeah, because she doesn't know any better. I mean, this is what happens in legislature. Somebody, loms on to some discussion or some talking point, and it's true for the legislators get duped into thinking because some mother or dad comes to them and cries and says, my kid died of kratom. They don't look behind it. They don't look at the statistics or that the data. They just say, oh, then we're going to go ban it. And this is what I think that Representative Ah is involved in. She hears Kolodny, says, well, let's just go ban that stuff. And she's being encouraged by none other than the very fair, the person who just wants to find the truth, Rick Townsend, who just that's all he's about. He's not trying to do anything that would ban this stuff, even though he sponsored 3 ban bills, even though he sits in the hearing and is asked by the chairman of the committee that he's testifying for to accept his ban bill. And he says, I have a substitute bill and it's not available to anyone. And so the chairman says, well, tell us what your substitute bill says. And so Rick Townsend starts describing everything his substitute bill does to the members of the committee for which he wants them to vote on his substitute bill. And he fails to mention that it has a requirement in it that the only kratom that can be sold in the state of Georgia is kratom that is grown in the United States. Well, I don't know. I could be up in the night too late, but that's called a ban.
Yeah.
And when he's asked by a member of the Senate Health Committee, how are you going to enforce this? He sits there like deer in headlights, dumbfounded by the question, because we have been fighting him, telling him that the bill needed to include an enforcement provision with the Department of Agriculture in the state of Georgia. That's what we were telling him. And he rejected it. And suddenly he gets caught. And the senator says, well, how are you going to enforce it? And he's sitting there, deer in headlights, and then who comes to his rescue? Who? I mean, I know that there are any number of people out there that would do it, to walk up to him and say, hey, this is what you should do, Rick. And he gets a random person out of the audience that no one could have expected. Matt Weatherington.
Yeah. The whole whisper.
His head like this. The microphone can't hear it. And he says, local law enforcement. And, oh, okay. Local law enforcement. That's what his answer was that Matt Weatherington fed him. And he was the one that argued in the prior hearing in the House side that you couldn't trust local law enforcement because they wouldn't know when they came in, is this an illegal product? They wouldn't know. And they wouldn't, by the way. There has to be a testing mechanism. There has to be labeling requirements. There has to be a formulation standard. And he goes, local law enforcement. These guys are a clown show. And now he's the chairman.
How many times did he whisper in Rick Townsend's ear? Because the one that I saw, he whispered, I think he said knowingly and willing, or unknowingly and unwilling, something like that.
So I'm not going to say that I don't remember that.
Knowingly and willingly.
So yeah, this is a legal question about what the standard is for prosecuting a company that puts a bad product. And it's a tricky thing to say, did you do it? We wanted a specific legal standard that our lawyers that do labeling wants on there. They wanted one thing only that was important to Matt Wetherington, because he told it to me personally. He said, we need to have a requirement that the companies that sell kratom in the state of Georgia are registered as domicile corporations with the Secretary of State. That's what he wanted. Now, why did he want that? Because when he sues them, they then in the jurisdiction of the courts if they're domicile manufacturers. This is all he being Rick Townsend has been the apologist and the lapdog for the product liability
since 2022.
Yes,
since 2022.
Now I'm going to have the chance to testify. I'm told on the 21st of August in Rick Townsend's hometown, where he represents the area, where he's holding his second public hearing for the Blue Ribbon Commission on youth exposure to kratom. So I'm looking forward to that opportunity to help the chairman.
Bring your dots.
I will. So I keep them handy all the time.
Yeah. Bring your dots. Because it's about youth exposure.
Yeah.
About not just that, youth exposure that 6 emergency room doctors all conclusively said was kratom. One of them.
In Georgia.
Yes. So I want to know if the chairman's going to bring those 6 emergency room doctors to explain why the hell they call it a kratom exposure when it was dots.
Yep.
By the way, I found out from a mother when I was describing this that she said that her kid went through that dumping syndrome that's described by the Mayo Clinic when you consume too much sugar in the form of dots too fast with an adolescent. And she said it's exactly what happens. Her kid was, explosive diarrhea, she said, more than I wanted to know, vomiting. The kid was feeling queasy, and yet 6 emergency room doctors concluded that it was definitely kratom.
Nick has a question. Do you have any update to the FDA and kratom webpage?
Well, here's what I can say. We've been engaged in discussions with the FDA and with HHS for an extensive period of time, trying to come to some language that they would agree to. There is clearly a high level from the commissioner on down wanting to do this. The lawyers that work at the FDA are arguing that to make changes on that website would risk the FDA looking as though they are endorsing kratom as a product. Now, that's nonsense, because they can put language up there, and they do it for numerous products that simply says what the rules are. And in this case, the rules are that kratom is allowed to be sold, not banned from the marketplace the way it says now. So they're not endorsing the product. They're just simply saying what the regulatory framework is. So what we were told is that when and if, but really when, the DEA schedules 7OH, that then they would proceed with changes to the FDA and kratom website that would align with the marketplace. And if they do that, great. Now, we know that we expect that date will be August the 5th, when the final rule will be established. And this is important. We get to the end of the 30 days, and then there has to be a second notice where the DEA says, we are now proceeding with the scheduling, the temporary scheduling of 7OH in the limits that they've specified. and they're doing the second scheduling for Sudandoxil and the other mid 45. I'm sorry, not this is mid 45, MGM 15 and 16. So that's what they'll do. Now that takes a second Federal Register notice. These are not judicial; they can't be reviewed by the judiciary, and there's no public comment period on that. So that's just where we'll be for the next couple of years once that happens. So hopefully, when all of those things happen, assuming that the HHS comment docket does not return some alarming thing that needs to be fixed, which might take a little bit of time for the DEA on the 708 level on the one thing. The other one will go through because there's nothing. The HHS comment period does not do anything about the Sudandoxil or the MGM-15. Those are going to get banned as of August the 5th. The 708 level might be a subject of controversy. All that to say, whenever all of that gets wrapped up, the publications are made, then we're hopeful that the FDA will move as quickly as they can to correct a website that is misleading, it's wrong, and it's being used inappropriately by state and local governments to ban kratom. It's happening in
Yeah.
it's happening. They're trying to do it in Ohio. We're in trouble in Michigan and Minnesota and in New Mexico. So these are all things, and numerous local governments. So we're hopeful that that's going to happen on that timetable. But we are engaged in active negotiations on these things. And to the extent that the 708 community wants to come in and say, oh, the AKA has been advocating for 708 to be banned, swear to God, that's true. Absolutely true. We've been fighting hard for it. Blame us if you choose, but we're trying to protect the public, not protect industry. We don't care if you buy a natural leaf kratom product or not. But when you buy a natural leaf kratom product, it's not going to be mislabeled and mischaracterized as a safe product when it's actually 7-OH. That's our objective.
Dana, what are you referring to? I don't know what you're referring to. You know, the other thing I want to say is that the 708ers, okay, so you know how it's got the 1 milligram cap in the DEA register thing? You know,
Yes.
Does that mean if there's a 1 milligram cap, can the products that are on the market today be sold as 1 milligram tablets?
7-OH products.
Yes.
Sure.
So they can't even be happy with that, you know?
Because it doesn't do anything. I mean, you're talking about the difference between 0.5% and 1%. You know, that's sort of the gap. It's not going to do anything. They don't want to sell 1 milligram serving sizes. That doesn't do anything to anybody.
I mean, I can see the people that take like 500 milligrams a day don't want to have to chew up 500 pills. You know, I can see that. That's
7.5 milligrams doesn't do anything to you.
Oh, I think I know what she's talking about.
So
yeah, I don't know what Dana's talking about. Sorry, Mac.
7.5 milligrams is Vince Sanders' initial product. When they tested his product, it had 28.5 milligrams in it. So, you know, the DA is going to do the right thing here and say, here's the level at which 7-OH is capped. And you're either at 0.5% or 1 milligram per serving, and that's going to take out the market. But they can still sell products that have that limitation on it, no question.
I have no doubt that Vince has already pre-planned his next grift. You know, he's got the pattern of grifting. It reminds me of some other people in the community, but they got the pattern of grifting. You know, he's gonna, if he doesn't get charged with narco terrorism, you know, he's already on to his next product.
So I don't know about that, but I do know that in the interview that he did, where he disclosed there was no science, they were just using people as guinea pigs, he also said that he was amazed that the 7-OH racked up all of these sales. This was in 2022, I think. He started to see it. So it sold out of anything that he compared it to in the cannabis industry. Never seen a product enter the market and just rack up those kind of sales. That's what he was talking about, is sales. So this is just the crazy.
And then he upped his ante by doing the billboards. You know? And it's like, that is typical drug dealer behavior.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
Taylor has, if Ohio makes it until January when DeWine is out of office, do you think the BOP will back off?
Well, No, the Board of Pharmacy is going to continue its crusade, and the only restraint that we have on them now is litigation. So we filed our first lawsuit. The judge in that lawsuit signed off on the agreement we had that natural kratom leaf products were going to be allowed to be sold in the state of Ohio. They were not covered by the ban. It was only 7-OH. Question that arose was about beverages. And so there was a second lawsuit filed, and we let the Global Kratom Coalition take the lead on that. The judge has not yet issued his final opinion on it, other than I'm aware of a discussion that took place in the judge's chambers where he said to the Board of Pharmacy that any product that was allowed to be on the market prior to your rule is going to be allowed to be on the market in Ohio today, with it's a natural leaf product and a beverage, and not violating the 7-OH limit. So I think we're relatively safe. We're waiting to see what the GKC lawsuit develops and what the judge's opinion is and what the final order is. But we also heard from the in the testimony where the Department of Agriculture representative defended what the Board of Pharmacy was doing, saying that they were initiating their rules consistent with what the Board of Pharmacy was saying, where they say at the Department of Agriculture that you cannot sell a kratom product in any food store. So if you have a Circle K that sells prepared sandwiches, or for that matter, sells a hot dog, you can't sell kratom there. You can walk straight across the street to a health food store or a smoke shop and you buy it. That makes no sense. And then you have the corollary argument that the only kratom that you can sell in the state of Ohio has to be in a clear plastic bag. It cannot have any directions for use on it, and it can't be for human consumption.
Mm.
This is insanity. So we've filed another lawsuit. If we haven't, we will the first of the week, against the Department of Agriculture, because we need to stop the insanity. The legislature is incensed about the way the Board of Pharmacy has behaved. And so I think you'll see when they get back from their recess action that will supplement what the courts are doing right now. But we've got to put into the put the issue before a judge and get a ruling, because this, again, conflicting regulatory schemes in place in Ohio that have to be controlled. Same is true in Florida. There was a lawsuit filed, I think, on Friday in Florida, because the Department of Agriculture there is, doing things that don't make any sense. We had a good call, personally, from the AKA with the Department of Agriculture, where they did put in a 60-day moratorium on enforcing their regulatory scheme that they had implemented after the AG's rule. But that isn't sufficient because it doesn't protect kratom bar owners.
Right.
It has definitions in it and labeling that are, we think, directly conflict with federal law and with the AG's rule. But they don't agree with us on that. So I think you'll see litigation have to play out there as well.
Man. This is why y'all need to donate to the AK. It takes money to do all this.
It does. These lawsuits are very expensive, and you've heard the old adage that the only people that win the trials are lawyers, and that's true. They drain a lot of money. Now, in this case, we've already gotten one good outcome, and we expect we're going to get another good outcome in Ohio, and we expect one in Florida. But the other thing that will happen in the Ohio race is that DeWine, who is reacting to, as I understand it, the visit by the Gibbs family, and they persuaded the governor that kratom had killed their kid. And I don't doubt the sincerity of the father and the mother who believe that. I think they're wrong, but that's a different thing. And yet, the discussion about the facts and evidence is not going to come up in an emotional appeal to the governor. So the governor implemented this policy and directed the Board of Pharmacy to schedule kratom. He will be gone. He's not running again, and he will be gone in next January. So we're gonna keep staying alive until we get rid of him as he steps down. That's all.
I have no idea what Dana's talking about.
There's this app that somebody, you know who he is. I think once I say it, you'll know what I'm talking about. But what she's saying is, I guess if you download the app, you put in your usage every day, and you can use it to, log in your dosage or your amount consumed, and then if you want to taper off, you can come up with like a little plan. And
Oh,
so I guess what she's saying is, uh, the person that developed the app is saying that he's going to use the data from it to bring to legislate or to bring to hearings. But I mean, it's not like an official app that, in other words, if that's what, in other words, you're just saying, trust me. I'm not saying he's a bad guy or a good guy. I'm just saying I have no idea if
no, I
that's,
don't know either. But I
yeah, and
know who
like,
you're talking about.
yeah,
There,
and it's,
yeah, there are standards that any a test that's applied to any evidence and data that's presented. In 2016, the FDA presented what they thought was acceptable levels of scientific rigor that would have justified the scheduling of natural kratom leaf products in 2016. And the DEA said no. And then the FDA submitted a full 8-factor analysis. And when they did that, it was Secretary Jawad, I'm sorry, the Assistant Secretary for Health, Jawad, who said, this is embarrassingly poor evidence and data. Now, obviously, there was evidence and data. It was embarrassingly poor. And so the question is, does the data that's presented to support the position that we're talking about here, does it meet the rigorous scientific standards for the development of conclusions that are acceptable to be viewed as scientific evidence? And I don't know the answer for this app. I mean, it could be
mhm,
that there's a sufficient number of people doing it. It could be that it's verifiable. It could be that there's good data produced from it. I don't know. And so I'm not going to say it's not, but I'm telling
yeah,
you that in order to be construed as good scientific evidence, you don't want to get into the situation where the FDA, who believed the career staff out there thought we put together a great, absolutely great dossier, and then you have the Assistant Secretary of Health, who is the designated official under the Controlled Substance Act, saying that the secretary may designate an official person to make submittals to the Drug Enforcement Administration. He's the guy that's delegated by the secretary. He has to evaluate, he or she, that information. And so that's what we got. We got an evaluation done by the Assistant Secretary of Health that called the FDA's evidence and data embarrassingly poor evidence and data. So there you have it. I mean, it's a question of how we come out at the end of the sieve here and evaluating all this, and is it credible? I mean, it's
yeah,
the same thing as Rick Townsend deceiving members of the committee who are about to vote on his bill by not disclosing the most important thing his substitute bill does, which is effectively ban kratom. And he
Mhm.
doesn't disclose that. And so, would you call that a well-developed legislative proposal? No. Dr. Jawad would call that an embarrassingly poor legislative proposal because it doesn't meet the standards that you
Just
expect for the right thing.
just like Rick Townsend wanting it being sold behind the pharmacy counter. That was a de facto ban.
Well, let me tell you something that's even more significant of that. He said, he said that the pharmacist agreed with him and said that's what should be done. The Pharmacist Association lobbyists called our lobbyists and said, we never had such a discussion and never made that recommendation. Maybe he walked down the streets of Brunswick, walked in and says, I'm Rick Townsend. I hate kratom. Do you want to start selling kratom from behind the counter in a pharmacy? And maybe that pharmacist said, yeah, Rick, no problem. And that's what he gets. The pharmacists want to do this. They do not. And here's why. Under the federal law, pharmacists have liability insurance.
Yeah,
And they're not going to accept the liability of selling kratom if it's not properly regulated, and they don't want any parts of the sale of it because they are selling prescription medications that are approved by the FDA. And now all of a sudden you're going to tell them that they're going to sell this other product that exposes them to legal liability. This makes no sense. And yet he'll sit there and say, "Oh, I think the pharmacist should be behind the counter." Give me a break. It's already required to be behind the counter, and he's saying, "Well, you can't let some kid from behind the counter advise people on why or how they should use kratom." He's right. I don't want some kid telling me that. It's not the kid's job. The kid's job
exactly.
is to make sure you're 21 years old. Produce your license, show me you're 21, and then that's it. And the point of sale enforcement is an important part of how we protect kids, which is what he supposedly is dealing with in his Blue Ribbon Commission on, the teen exposure to kratom. Instead, he's gone off into banning kratom. I mean, did you
Mhm.
hear anything from Kolodny that talked anything about kids?
Nope.
No, this was all about
No,
banning.
none of them. The whole first study wasn't even about youth exposure at
Nope.
all. This is just Townsend's got his way. He's head honcho sitting up there, and he's getting his little wave up. He probably threw a tantrum doing that.
Yeah.
And not once. Not once.
He reminds me, and I've forgotten the name of the show, but Boss Hogg. Boss Hogg was in charge. He's Boss Hogg.
Yeah.
He just walks in and thinks he owns everything, and he don't. And every time Boss Hogg got embarrassed, which was on every show, I don't know what to make of that.
There's got to be some. I mean, because you're constantly seeing Matt Weatherington, I can't even say his name. Matt Weatherington there, or his colleagues from the Weatherington law firm there. They're all peas in the pod.
Yeah. So here's at least my view on this. I think that Townsend can invite anybody he wants to come and talk, but it is his obligation as Chairman Boss Hogg to make sure it's fair. He has to do that.
Yeah.
And did anybody think that when you have 12 witnesses and 9 of them are anti-kratom, that was fair? It's not that he couldn't get a more balanced panel. He didn't want to. And so Chairman Boss Hogg just said, I'm going to put on a show. And he's going to do another one on August 21st. But he at least promised me that I'll have a chance to testify. And he said he had a very prominent anti-kratom person. I hope it's Dean Francis.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot wait. Yeah, but he's got somebody who knows who it is.
Are you guys going to be wanting advocates to show up again, or is just because
we
it's so up in the air?
Yeah, we just found out on Friday he wants to leave some time for consumer testimony. Now, yes, we want advocates to be there because he's going to trot out his family from Brunswick who told him that their kid is in a mental institution because he got whacked out on kratom. Now, I have no idea what the circumstances of that kid are. I have never in my life, in the 10 years that I've been working in this space, heard of someone that entered a mental institution that was perfectly normal, that had all of their faculties around them, and they walked in to start taking kratom and they ended up in a mental institution.
Well, Tennessee, somebody lost their leg. So, I mean,
because of kratom.
It happens, Mac. There's a first for everything.
Yeah, back in my day, they called that shit happens, but I can't say that word. So,
it's Sunday, Mac. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. And my wife and I just got out of church. We I call it team teaching for the juniors and seniors in high school at our church, and she teaches. And thank goodness for those kids that she teaches. And I'm just the logistical support. And every once in a while, I'm called upon to say something like, I agree with the teacher. And so I do that as dutifully. And then I set up the audiovisual stuff. But she's a fabulous teacher for those kids. But I get along for the ride to say that I'm team teaching with her. And so I think that some people are experts that way, right? Because they're along for the ride. And they really don't.
Well, that's true, though. That's true.
Yeah. And I've toned down my cussing. I know that when I first bursted onto the scene, people brought it to your attention, Mac, that, how can you have this person represent the kratom community, which is every other word's a cuss word, whatever, So I did not stop cussing, but I did turn it into diet cussing.
And I personally appreciate that. And I know that one of the bad influences that we brought into this whole discussion is our good friend John Shinholzer. As a Marine, he tends to let fly the F word every once in a while.
I love it. Just have to say, I love it.
I hear you. I'm not a big fan of it, but when he drops it, it's usually impressive. So, and I was about to say that terrible thing. I called him a former Marine one time. Whew, did I catch it? There is no such thing as a former Marine.
That's right. Yeah.
And I've learned I almost said it here, but so don't rat me out. No, he's a Marine, and his being attacked by Dean Francis now just because he has an opinion that Dean Francis doesn't agree with. That's why he's being attacked.
Mm.
That's what Dean Francis does. Everything is on the attack mode, calling people names. I mean, it is embarrassing for him that he can't have a rational discussion. And
Yeah.
if you say, "Well, Dean, I don't agree with you," you're immediately blocked, so you can't complete the sentence, and nobody can see what you said because when he blocks you, it strips out all of the comments. And
If
he's a
I can, per through my 7 years of advocacy, if I can learn to mature myself like I have, Dean, you could do the same thing. Put a muzzle on your chihuahua. You're over there ankle biting everybody. You know, stop it.
I
Sit back
heard
and learn.
Chill.
I heard his voice on the 911 call, and this is the father who obviously was panicked for the safety of his son and his wife. At one point, he tells the operator that Cameron bumped his what appears to be referencing his wife. Uh, these are tragic crises that happen, but then to walk out and act like it didn't happen, act like never was 7OH. He said it multiple times, not
Yeah.
7OH. Now it's an evolving story. And now the latest thing Cameron told me was he started out on a product that he purchased that was on the AKA website. He cited the name of the company, and he said that he purchased these products. They were based in California in 2017. We didn't create the GMP program until 2000, almost 2020, late 2019. So that name wouldn't have been up there. He's
Yeah.
gone on the website and seen it now. So he said it was naturally creating products. So I told him I would. I said, I'll go back and look. The company that he referenced on the website was never in California. So he was adamant. I bought it from a company in California because I was saying, what did you buy? And he said, oh, and he gave generic names for the product he was buying. And it didn't give any specific reference to a specific product that we could have gone back and looked at. So that embarrassed him. And so now he's saying, well, yeah, it was natural leaf, but it was only natural leaf. And I said, how do you know that? How do you know it wasn't a improperly extracted product that was highly concentrated extract that could do what you're suggesting that it happened? And then it's, well, it wasn't that. And then he says, oh, it was OPMS. That's his latest one. So he keeps escalating, changing the products, what products he was taking. And he's just trying to find, and of course, his claim is his father's claim. OPMS is
Yeah.
this big supporter of the AKA. So they contour their stories, leave integrity behind, leave the truth behind in order to justify what they're saying. And when I say, well, your father said that it was natural leaf, not 7OH, I don't remember the exact words he said. I said, well, that's my dad talking about the situation where things just kept moving from one thing to another. And then someone told me that Cameron, just in the last 6 months, was showing up at a shop demanding road gummies and was upset that the store had closed and was texting the clerk with whom he knew, and it was road gummies. Now,
What are those?
those are mushroom psychedelic derivative,
Oh,
Oh, okay.
but it's only natural kratom leaf.
Yeah.
So what the hell was he doing, complaining to a clerk in a store that he wanted his road gummies? It's only natural leaf kratom, Governor. It's only natural leaf kratom. Representative Cole. This is what. Why do they think that it's justified to say things that are not true just because they're on this crusade?
Yeah.
I,
And it's like I get it. Like I know every family goes through struggles, but when you start making bold claims and stories and getting in the public eye and wanting to be a part of public policy, you should at least come to the table with the truth
yeah.
yes.
And then
and
we get
genuine
called
purpose.
bullies because we break that we
Yeah.
shatter their lies, and then we
Yeah.
get called bullies for that. Like, you literally came on public platforms to say this stuff, and you weren't expecting people that have been saved by kratom to attack you. You crazy.
Yeah.
Anybody who reads the language and the the narrative that Dean Francis puts up in this latest one about John Shinholzer, you cannot describe it in any other way. This is not civil. It's not reasonable.
No.
It's an attack piece. It is a junkyard dog going after someone because they disagree with him, and that's it. And
Yeah.
and there's no credibility, in my opinion, for anyone to give the least bit of credence to what he's saying, because it changes every time you say, well, here's a piece of evidence that says what you're saying is not wrong. And so then Dean Francis the next day says, well, I never said that. This is it. Let's look over here at this shiny object, and then you'll know that what I'm saying is true. The story changes every time it's convenient for it to change. He's never accountable for what the truth is or what the evidence is, and he doesn't care, because this is about, we've got to save people from this awful substance called kratom, and he keeps escalating the battle. Now, one interesting thing is that when you delete people or block people, it makes your statements less interesting, I think. And I saw somebody sent me some screenshots of something you're saying, and there were 0 people reacting. Where when we were going back and forth, we had hundreds of people that were reacting. So maybe there's a silver cloud in all of this for
Maybe
him being.
people are starting to kind of see, man, this dude is a little bit unhinged. You
Hmm.
know, I mean, because, there are
That's the
those
thing,
people.
though. Yeah, that's the thing is that. That's the thing, and I don't want to go into detail about it,
Yeah.
but it's like you sit back and it's like, for what happened between us, with us, we don't reach out to people and be like, hey, don't trust this person, don't do this, don't do that, whatever. You got to sit back and you got to wait for people to see it on their own, and that's what's been happening within the kratom community and the other group of gals, and it's like, because we haven't publicly came out here and said any, why we left. These are the reasons why we left, or anything like that. There are multiple reasons why we left.
Well, and I, you don't need to disclose any of that other than what their behavior exhibits now. Just
Yeah.
go, like I say, randomly pick any one and listen to them, and you will see that the hypocrisy is amazing. They are apologists for the 7OH community, and they brazenly do it and openly do it. I'm sorry. And that was the disagreement we had. But I made the offer to Madeline Sklar and any one of the other 7OH gals to come on a public webinar with me. They could say whatever they wanted. We could have whatever discussion we wanted. We could have a moderator if they wanted, and let's just have an open civil discussion. And they declined, because they're
I
not
don't get
going
that.
they're not going on a webinar with Mac Haddow, not a lobbyist. And
Sometimes
by the way,
discussions are how things kind of get settled. Sometimes it's better to talk. I mean, honestly, I've noticed that. Like, sometimes it's better just to be open, honest, sit down and talk. If you don't agree at the end of the day, at least you know you tried.
You agree to disagree.
Yeah.
That's it.
I truly wish I'd followed my mother's advice, who told me that she just gave me the recommendation, rather than tell people you're a lobbyist, you should tell them that you're a piano player in a whorehouse. She thought that would be more respectable. So maybe I should say that to you.
Just start
Not-
telling people that.
Oh my god. And you just came back from church, Mac.
I'm just telling you what my mother said.
You're on a roll.
God rest her soul. That's just the way life is, right?
Yeah.
So the bottom line is that you have a community out here, and the kratom consumer public, who got duped, misled, and frankly completely deceived by a group of manufacturers who brought a product onto the market that is an opioid, and they are responsible for that. And part of that responsibility is that they cannot continue to be on the market if they're selling a product that doesn't conform with the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. And here's what an FDA guy told me. He said, if nothing else, look at their marketing, because all of their marketing is for therapeutic benefits of their 7OH products. They're talking about pain relief, all of them. And he pointed out that, and this is something that I know people sometimes don't fully understand. your marketing materials are all under the authority of the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. So if, even though it may not be on the label of your product, if you market the product at the point of sale or on your website, and it says this is going to help you with pain, this is going to help you control your anxiety, this is going to help you get off of opioids, those are all therapeutic claims for a product that makes it illegal. And then then he said that, and this is the part most people don't understand, every comment over on a platform over which you have control as a manufacturer and a marketer of a product, where a public person comes on and says, hey, he really it helps my pain, you're responsible as the manufacturer for that health claim, because that would influence other people to buy that product. So you have to take that product off your website. And the FDA guys have tracked this. They've seen all of it. They see it. And so I think that
what about those people that are, yeah, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. What about those people that are vendor sponsored by Kratom manufacturers and they get up there and talk about how Kratom helps with their pain? Are they still violating commercial speech laws?
Any person in the supply chain, manufacturer, distributor, or retailer that makes a therapeutic claim makes that product illegal, right? Now, the remedy is that the FDA issues a warning letter, then the FDA issues a stop sale order, and they take it off the market. And that's what happens, right? But it's an illegal product. You can't remain on the market if you make those illegal therapeutic claims. And the FDA guy was just saying, here's the evidence. And they don't make any changes. They've sent out a bunch of warning letters. Nobody's changing. They don't care. And they're obligated under the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act to do exactly what I just described. And that's a problem that they have to address. And by the way, every Kratom manufacturer, same boat. We early on, when we got involved in this, and prior to our sending reports to the FDA about these illegal therapeutic claims, we had many sessions where we warned these manufacturers. And what we heard back consistently was, nobody enforces that. And don't worry about it. And why are you so upset about this? Well, it's because it's the law. So this is the other part of the law. I can, as a Kratom consumer, tell anyone I choose that Kratom has helped me with, in my case, with hip pain and back pain and knee pain. I can tell them that. And that doesn't violate the law because I'm not engaged in the selling of any Kratom product. So consumers are allowed to say, they just can't say it on a manufacturer's website in a comment. The manufacturer has to control that. So that's the differentiation between commercial free speech, which is very limited, and public free speech, which is very broad. So consumers can talk all day long about the benefits they have with Kratom. That's why the American Kratom Association can say that there are therapeutic benefits to consumption of Kratom products. We can't say it on behalf of any manufacturer, any specific product. That's the key differentiation there.
See, I never, I've been offered plenty of times to be vendor sponsored, to promote products, but I just did not, I never felt right doing that. I wanted to be able to freely say what I want to say. I will 100% confidently say that Kratom allowed me to cure my active addiction, So I don't know. And it helps with my, it's my antidepressant. It's my anti-anxiety. It's my, I don't like equating it to a painkiller, but it helps with my chronic pain, And I just never wanted to have to make money off of promoting somebody's product, knowing that ties me to receiving funds for it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Everybody's experience. Well, not there are consistent experiences, but some people have different reactions to natural Kratom. My wife takes it. She used to take it when she worked down on the hill because it helped her increase her focus and gave her energy when she worked at the Congressional Record Office. But she still takes it, and she's not in the same situation I am with pain as much as it just makes her feel better and it elevates her mood a little bit. And she takes it before we go and teach. She goes and teaches these high school kids, right? We're in our Sunday school class. It just makes her feel better. And helps with her presenting of the lesson, but it makes her stomach upset too. So if she takes a little bit too much, then that's the reaction she has. So she
Yeah.
watches it, and and all of us know about the ceiling effect.
Yeah.
You can't take enough that will harm you before you start to throw up, and
Ugh.
that's the interesting part of it. Obviously, if you have an addiction personality, you're going to abuse it, and you're going to do whatever you do, and that's what Noraboko talks about, is that there are people in that class, narrow and limited, that have an addiction personality that will abuse anything. So
Yeah.
that's possible with kratom, natural kratom. But we go around and around on all of these experiences, and the because 7OH is the one that's in the barrel right now with the DEA. The reaction from the 7OH manufacturing community, who wants to protect their ability to make millions of dollars a week on selling 7OH products to consumers that they deceived and duped and misled, and deceived in the highest way with their marketing techniques. Now they want to act like, oh, now that we've hooked them, we should let them continue to take it,
Mm-hmm.
not be accountable in any way. I mean, that's mind-boggling to me that they can justify that kind of thing. And yet you see Seven Hope Alliance, what are they doing? They're firing up the consumer base of 7OH products to go protect it, when they're the ones who rely entirely for funding on the companies that are making this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, what? But that's what they do.
And not and lying on top of that, talking about the kratom and 7OH ban.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can tell you, I would swear to it, that the vast majority of the problems we're having in the states and local governments is because of 7OH.
Yep.
And the 7OH consumer today can make whatever argument they choose, but I'm telling you that from a public policy perspective, it has created havoc, confusion, and utter chaos in the state and local government communities. And we're going to have a couple of years ahead of us in sorting that
Yeah.
out. Even when the 7OH is banned, we're going to have to be out there saying, for those that banned it, you made a mistake. And for those who are thinking about it, you don't want to do that. And for those that want responsible policy, let's do the Kratom Consumer Protection Acts and make sure that we have those in effect. And I think the one good thing that potentially could come from this crisis we're in right now with the 7OH people is that you will have Congress react, and they will pass a law that will provide for that regulation, and a separate law that will deal with the 7OH
Possession.
community possession and decriminalize it, because we believe strongly that should be done.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like I said, I do not agree with that possession charge whatsoever. I don't. But, like you said, we don't make the rules, we just follow them. So, I don't know. Does anybody else have any last minute questions? Well, we've been here for almost 2.5 hours, y'all. We couldn't attend yesterday because, life was lifing.
Right.
So, it's actually...
Well, I was going to be on the 7OH Gals podcast.
Yeah. You're not physically weren't going to be on there. Were you talked about? Probably.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't watched it, so I'm sure I was, but I'll find out.
Goodness gracious.
All I can say is if anybody wants to see the shift in what happened between them, just start watching anything after May of 2025. If you want to go down that rabbit hole, go right ahead. Go right ahead.
And for everybody, please get off your butts and go and get engaged.
We do. Oh, so you did finally make the link for the September 13th rally. So I did start putting that out there. I'm going to start promoting it some more because that's the rally in DC.
We're excited about this. This is going to be a chance for us to highlight our story and certainly celebrate, recognize the 10-year anniversary of that rally that took place, that really was the start of the revolution with respect to kratom, and that obviously impacted the federal government on it, and so we'll do that. We're going to have meetings in the White House and with the Veterans Affairs Department. We have gotten a commitment from the House Veterans Affairs Committee to hold a roundtable discussion with the veterans who are coming into town, and they're going to talk about their experience with Kratom. It's a fabulous thing.
Nice.
Yeah, we're getting recognition of the legitimate uses of Kratom that under a controlled marketplace are going to be part of the catalyst for getting a federal bill. This is going to be fabulous. We hope that as many people who can start planning and tapping into some of your social media and your friends and your family to help them to help you get to Washington, because we know it's expensive. You've got plane flights and you've got lodging and meals. Please do it if you can, because we are going to recognize that 10-year anniversary, and we would love to have as many people as we can get there to help us celebrate this event.
She said, I had a council member ask me the other day if I was a resident or affiliated with the industry. We get that a lot, Dana. I said no to both because it's the truth. She then asked how I heard about the hearing. You could just easily say it's public.
Yeah, it's a public hearing. I'm an advocate. I follow Kratom advocacy.
Yeah, I follow what's going on in the Kratom world. It's like
a lot of people don't follow legal stuff until. That's what I say. Like, there's so many people that have no idea what goes on.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, the stuff we have to sit through, Mac.
Yeah.
I know. There's a protective instinct by some of these local government officials that you have to come from the area, right? And if the pursuit of truth about a controversial product that's impacting people in their community, they ought to be willing to accept that truth wherever it comes. But I get it. I live in a county that I'm going to be involved in a hearing here this week where they'll give preference to those who live in the county versus non-county residents, but they at least hear out everybody. And you shouldn't bar someone from a city council or county council meeting just because they don't live in that county, if they're giving you information about what the impact of what you're doing. Because if you have a county or a city that bans Kratom, for example, it's like the domino effect.
Yeah.
And you have to say, no, you can't do this because it will have an impact on surrounding communities as soon as you do it.
My thing is, I will say that I am representing thousands of people that follow me across all my social media platforms. That's not a lie. I have thousands of people, and I'll say that they may, most likely don't even know that this hearing is even happening in their backyard or something. So, but the AKA.
I only have 999 because Dean dropped out.
Damn it, Dean. How dare you? I call him Dishonest Dean.
Honest Abe and Dishonest Dean.
If the shoe fits, Dean, wear it, because Cinderella certainly did it, and now we need you to do it. I mean, it's like being accountable for his persistent misrepresentations about his son's experience, which is the so-called catalyst for why he did this. Now he's looking for a camera.
If anybody wants to listen to that 911 call, it's opentruth.org. It's in that link.
Everybody should go and see the opentruth.org website. Everybody.
It's beautiful, beautiful website.
Beautiful
website. It has a lot of info.
It does. It's like fabulous.
Dr. Hayes says his feet are too small for the slipper.
Oh, goodness gracious.
I'm not going to get there at all. But Heidi, thank you. That's a very entertaining comment.
We did, talking about freaking Kolodny, because I put Kolodny and Dean, and they're like brothers. I swear they could be brothers. But we won Suffolk County.
Yeah.
We won there.
We're winning a lot of places. I mean, we fought the battle in Michigan, and we won on the ban because you had Patty Wheeler up there parading like the queen of the house, and she was saying let's ban it, and she didn't win there. We had the same thing in Minnesota. They did not win there. In Utah, they didn't get their ban bill. Now we're going to have to undo the nonsense they did there. In North Carolina, they're not going to get their ban bill. In South Carolina, they didn't get their ban bill. I mean, Florida, they didn't get their ban bill. What are they talking about that they win all these places? Now, we did get bans obviously in Tennessee and Kansas. We don't like those. We don't think that they're justified, and we're going to be back at it. But we know that they were predicated in different circumstances on misrepresentations made by people that are just trying to get rid of kratom entirely. And I think we're going to be back with a better experience. When we talked to the governor's office in Kentucky, they got it. It was a bad bill that got slipped in at the last day, and all the Dean Francis just touted, we did that. No, you got in a last minute insertion of a provision that called for banning kratom that now got stayed because the governor said, I'm going to wait till next year and let's have a full hearing on it. We didn't have an opportunity to know it was even happening. It was slipped in the last day, and the sponsor admitted to the governor, hey, I just did it because someone asked me and I thought it sounded like a good idea. And they were funded by the government, so we thought that was a legitimate thing. And now there's going to be a full evaluation of the science. And if there's one silver lining in what's happening with the 7-OH thing, is we're going to be able to explain with more clarity the difference between 7-OH and natural leaf kratom, and the difference in the adverse events and deaths that are reported caused by the 7-OH products, rather than natural kratom leaf. So that's the silver lining that I think we'll be able to explain to legislators across the country.
Dana says, what can I do in Kentucky now? Should I be contacting anyone?
No, we're going to wait till the legislature starts up. We've got a commitment that we'll have regular order, meaning there'll be hearings, there'll be a bill filed, and we'll be able to work through this.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to overturn Connecticut, Louisiana, Tennessee, Kansas. Those need to be overturned.
Right.
Along with the original, well, I'm going to say original 5 now, Wisconsin, Indiana, Alabama, Arkansas,
We're gonna be doing some fun things here in the next couple months on 2 of those states. So stand by.
Oh, I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm ready. And just talking about how the DC rally on September 13th is the 10-year rally, and I'm just sitting here thinking that's 10 years of progress that 7-OH knocked off a few years from that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And some of those original people at the 10-year rally consumed 7-OH probably. Not even realizing that 7-OH is what knocked down your damn progress.
So there's no difference between a person who is literally now hooked on 7-OH because of the deception, and a regular kratom consumer, because many of them believe the deception. They're not guilty of anything other than they thought it was real, and they got hooked.
Can you elaborate on the metragenine pseudoindoxyl nonsense?
After this, I got to jump. So in the federal rule, there is a standard that says in the 7-OH rule that any pseudoindoxyl is illegal. So the argument that's being made by Michelle Ross is that all kratom is knocked out. There are numerous arguments that defeat that proposition. Most importantly, the 7-OH, the standard for pseudoindoxyl, is in the actual language of the rule, which says that this does not apply to natural kratom leaf products. And the fact that there may be, with a highly sensitive, very expensive testing machine that will show the presence of pseudoindoxyl, then that's not going to knock it out. And for those circumstances where you can identify the presence of pseudoindoxyl, they're going to look at what the level of pseudoindoxyl is in the natural kratom leaf product, and it's not going to be violative of any standard. The DEA can clean this up, obviously, but there is no threat based on the purpose for which the rule was published, which is clearly articulated in the rule, that natural kratom leaf is not part of this rule. And if natural leaf kratom has a trace amount of 7-hydroxymetrogenine, which it does, and has even a lower amount of pseudoindoxyl, then it doesn't count. And by the way, it doesn't count if they go out into a product and they find something that's been on the shelf for a year and a half, and they test it and it says, oh, somehow the oxidization over time has created increased level of pseudodoxil, they'll look at that. If that's what's happening, then they'll make some accommodation on shelf life and when products get removed from the shelf. It has nothing to do with the natural kratom leaf being there. So there's some work to be done here, but the baseline argument is false. That they're saying, oh, this is going to ban all natural kratom leaf products. Look at the language of the rule. It does not. And the technicalities that are associated with the identification of the 54 alkaloids that are in the natural kratom plant, which includes it goes down the list, speciosilitine and others. They're not going after them. Those are part of the natural levels that are found in the kratom plant, including pseudodoxil, which you would have to have this highly sophisticated machine to track. So, we don't see it as a problem. We're going to continue to obviously to work on this.
Chad makes sense.
I've heard that before.
And Mac is sitting up there holding up money. So he says, doesn't most money have traces of cocaine on it? But I don't have a Schedule 1 drug in my wallet.
I'm going to blow it off. Yeah. I think it's a great point he's making. Absolutely.
And stripper juice. Okay. Well, we can wrap this up. Thank you.
Everything I've said today is just my opinion. That's all it is. And you can take it for what it's worth. And the bad analogies I made, I apologize for. And the jokes I told that were inappropriate, I apologize for, just so the record is clear. I want to keep your reputations clean.
Well,
you want to keep what?
Your reputations clean. I didn't want to
whatever.
Yeah, but we won't ever apologize for doing what's right.
No.
There you go.
We hold on to honesty and integrity, just like the AKA does. You don't like it, don't follow, don't watch, whatever. Get gone. Because I don't care.
Thank you to both of you. This has been great fun.
Thanks, Mac. Have a good rest of your Sunday. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Y'all have
Bye, everybody.
great rest of y'all's weekend.
See you later.